Hello everyone, it's Dan again. You're probably bored of the sight of me by now, but this is the juicy stuff. This is the hard stuff. So the asana, I reckon enough effort, you can get to grips with whatever you like really, if you want to put the time and the dedication in. But the mind stuff is really hard. So compared to handstanding, I think that's a piece of cake. This is the tricky business. So, really all of our asana and our physical postures, they all sort of feed into this goal of having a bit more control over our mind and our thoughts and our worries and anxieties and all of that sort of stuff that on a day-to-day basis can really unsettle us and, cause us a lot of distress at times. So what we're going to talk about a little bit today is meditation, mindfulness, call it whatever you like. It's just a word, but what it is, how you might do it, why you might do it, because if you don't know why you want to do it, then it's pointless even trying. And then we'll go through a little guided one together. So hopefully this will answer everything you need to know about what it's all about, basically. I'm sure you'll have more questions, but feel free to contact me on the social media site, and then I'll answer anything I can. So the important thing is to realise that we're all just practicing. Meditation's a practice. Too many people start and give up like in a week or a day. They go, oh no, meditation, nah, that's not for me. I couldn't stop thinking. And you're like, well, hold on, that's the whole point of doing it. I wouldn't go to piano lessons, get to the end of the first lesson and say, piano's not for me. I thought I'd be playing Chopin by the end of this hour. You'd accept that you had to put in weeks, years, months, hours, hundreds and thousands of hours of time practicing piano to get any good at it. Why do we think meditating or having any control over our mind should be any different? It doesn't happen like that. I've been practicing for a while and it's still an ongoing process. I'm sure it will be ongoing for the rest of my life. I don't think there's an end point. So I guess one of the most important questions is, what is it? And that's probably the hardest one to answer because it's very personal to everyone. You don't have to sit down with your legs crossed meditating. You could be in a satsuma, walking the dog, doing the washing up, driving a car. Anything could be your meditation, and everything. That's a really nice thing about it. You don't need any equipment. There are no rules. You don't need anyone to guide you and tell you what to do. You just need a few little pointers. And the rest of it is really just down to you and your mind. So I always think it's a little bit like fishing. You can either go fishing with a stick, a bit of string and a safety pin, or you can go fishing with 20 boxes, rods, buzzers, bleepers, bait, and goodness knows what. Essentially, we're all trying to do the same thing. You don't need bowls and incense and candles and all sorts of things to chant. You can do all of them if you want to, but they're not meditation. They are just stuff. We're so used to, in the Western world, thinking we can buy our way into anything by just getting enough of the right gear, and you can't do that with this. You surround yourself with all the incense in the world and it isn't going to make your meditation any better, unfortunately. You just got to crack on with it yourself and get down to the nitty gritty. So it's hard work. No one said it was easy. So I always explain meditation with my little fluffy creature analogy. I say, what is meditation? I say, imagine you're out walking in the woods and you find this little fluffy creature. You don't know what it is, but it doesn't seem very happy. So you don't recognize it and it's not injured. You're not sure why it's unhappy, but you pick it up because you're a kind person. You take it home, put it in a little comfortable box with some lovely bedding, and you feed it. You find out what foods it likes. You find out how it likes to be talked to. You maybe train it to be a little bit better behaved, to stop getting angry and biting you, and so on. And over months, years, you become the world's expert on that little fluffy creature. You keep notes on it, you understand it, you know what makes it happy, sad, upset, aggravated. And by the end of your study, you can keep it happy or content all of the time. And that's meditation. That little fluffy creature is your mind. And your study of it is your meditation, is your learning about it, understanding it, because you can't do anything about your mind until you understand how it works. So really, the start of meditation is just observation. That might mean that you spend a long time just watching thoughts come and go, watching things come in, seeing what sort of things trouble you and that you think about. Meditation isn't about stopping your thoughts. That's a misconception. I'll talk about that in a moment. So that's the fluffy creature analogy, and that explains, if you like, a little bit about what meditation is. It's not spiritual, religious, mumbo jumbo. It can be all of those things if you want it to, but essentially it's just you, your mind, learning about yourself. So the next question is, why do you want to do it? You really need to know why you want to do it if you're going to do it. And for that, I use the broken car analogy. So you imagine you've got a car and it's not running properly. You're not sure exactly what's wrong with it. Sometimes the car just doesn't seem like it's running at sort of full power or whatever. So you might want to make that car run better. And that is the problem a lot of us find with our minds. We're not even entirely sure what the problem is. We just feel discontent or not fulfilled, or like there's an empty hole. In yoga they call it dukkha, and dukkha is the like axle hole on a cartwheel, and they say that the axle hole's not quite lined up properly with the axle, so the wheel sort of blump, blump, blump clunks down the road. And the idea is that through the practice of yoga, you get that wheel lined up just perfect, and it spins really freely and easily. So often life feels a little bit like we're clunk, 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 clunking along. It doesn't feel very smooth. We might have particular problems, like anxiety, depression, or a million other little things that, get to us. And that's why I started yoga in the first place, because of severe anxiety. But for a lot of us, it's nothing specific we can put our finger on. It's just like a general unease or discomfort with life. So we really need to start that examination process to work out what the problem is. And that comes back to the broken car. So if your car is not running right, you generally don't take it to the garage and say, something's wrong with my car, can you replace everything on it, please? Engine, brakes, clutch, the lot, okay? And hopefully it will fix it. That would be madness. You would, if you were sensible, get in your car, maybe take it for a drive, turn the radio off, turn the air conditioning off, wind all the windows up, so you're shutting out all distractions and noises and things, and you can listen out. You can listen out, see if there's a weird noise. You can smell if there's any sort of weird burning or something, something not quite right with the car. Once you know what's wrong with the car, or at least what the general problem is, you can start fixing it. So you could take it to the garage and go, when I'm driving, every time I turn left, there's a weird rumbling noise down by that wheel at the front. And then there's a starting point from which to fix the car with. And that is really how we go about meditation. We can't sort it out if we don't know what we're trying to sort out. And we can only find out what the problem is by observing and learning about ourselves. No one can do that for you. You have to do it yourself. So we're going to move on slightly to the last analogy, staying on a vehicular theme. We're thinking about trains a little bit. So oftentimes people think that we're trying to stop thoughts. They're thinking, well, like meditation or whatever is just like at the end of thoughts. We don't think anymore. We're just left with this like weird empty space or something. I'm not sure what we're left with, And that is a misconception, If you're trying to stop your thoughts, you can only stop them with more thoughts. And that's a little bit like trying to put out a fire by starting another fire. It's sort of, you're setting up a conflict, an impossible task with yourself. It just causes more and more confusion. You can sort of imagine it like thoughts are actually quite useful, because thoughts frame the quiet spaces. Without the thoughts, it would be very difficult to notice the quiet spaces, certainly at first. Sometimes I think of it like being on a train. So when you start meditating, you can imagine you're on a tube train, okay, on the London Underground or a metro or something. And the stations are your thoughts. And the space in between the stations is that space with no, you're not attached to your thoughts. You're just flowing through life really easy. You're on the journey, you're progressing, and life is flowing. But when you start meditating, if you imagine you're on the underground, the stops come quite quickly, and the journey in between, the quiet space, is quite short. So you'll find little periods of stillness and quietness, and then all of a sudden the train stops again and you're thrown back into thought. Everything comes to an abrupt and you're back tangled up in your worries and your fears and so on. Then you might find you meditate or you sit quietly, and then the train moves off again and life starts to flow. Everything feels a little bit easier. And then before you know it, there's another stop. And this happens a lot. So you're stopping, starting. The spaces in between, the quiet places are quite small, and the stops are quite frequent. Sometimes the train gets stuck at the station for ages. You get really hooked on a thought and you can't let go of it. You obsess over it. And it's like the train has, stopped at the station and stopped moving. And then with a little bit of work, you start flowing again and everything seems quite free and easy. And the more that you practice, the longer those spaces between the stations get. So, practice and practice and practice. And before you know it, you're on a cross-country train and the stops are coming, every 30 minutes instead of every 2 minutes. And, the journey in between, the nice free-flowing space where everything's just happening and moving and you're just enjoying it, is lasting longer and longer. And the more you sit in those or live in those free-flowing spaces, the more fluid and easy life becomes. Everything seems to just flow very easily. It doesn't feel like you're wading through treacle anymore. We all have times when it feels like life is just like that, just like wading through treacle. We can't get thoughts out of our head or so on. But they're the times we really need to practice. It's really easy to go a little bit slack when things are going well and life's going okay, because you don't feel you need to spend any time practicing. It's a little bit like swimming. I always send my daughters to swimming classes, not because I'm worried they're going to drown in the swimming pool, but I'm worried that when they fall off of the surfboard or whatever one day, that they'll be in the sea, and being in the sea is not a great time to learn to swim. So they go to all these classes, they learn to swim in a safe environment, and if they ever really need it, then it's there for them. And meditation is similar. Even if you can't see the need for getting to grips with your mind right now, because life is going all right, at some point life will throw you a curveball. Something will go wrong. You lose your job, lose your marriage, whatever, lose your health. People around you will, likewise. And that's when you really could benefit from those tools, because they're just tools, nothing magical about them. So how do we do it? I'm going to guide you through a simple one. There's no fixed rules. You can chuck out everything I say if it doesn't work for you. Find your own way. I'm not saying I've got the right way. It just works for me and it's pretty simple. Find a place to sit comfortably. It might be with your legs crossed on the floor. I always sit like this. It's comfortable for me. Nothing to do with meditating. It's just how my body is happy. You can sit with your legs crossed. When you're starting out, it can really help to prop your bottom up. So put a cushion or a rolled up mat underneath your bum so you're lifted a little bit, and tend to rock some weight forward. So when I do that, I don't sit down heavily on that. I maybe take like 60% of the weight forward into my legs, and there's 40% left in my bum. If I leave too much on my backside, my legs are going to go numb. And it's going to get very uncomfortable. So we want to be comfy. That's really important. If you really can't sit like this, then the next thing to try would be a bolster or a few rolled up mats, because a lot of people love sitting like this. So you can sit like this for ages. It's really comfortable. There's nothing magical about sitting with your legs crossed. Really what we're looking for is just keeping the spine fairly straight so we don't fall asleep or get drowsy, because you'll fall asleep quickly meditating when you get relaxed. Avoid lying down. you'll be asleep before you know it. If you want to go to sleep at night, then do meditation in bed, and before you know it, hopefully you'll be asleep. If you can't manage with this or a rolled up mat, then you can sit on a chair, and make yourself comfortable on a chair with your feet on the floor, just so you're still sort of fairly upright and awake. Try not to slump in a sofa or something. So find whatever's comfy for you. I'm going to guide you through, probably take 20 minutes or so, might be a little bit longer. And what we're doing really is just developing our powers of observation and concentration at first. Remember, we're not fighting our thoughts, we're not trying to push our thoughts away. That would just be indulging them again. We're just observing when they appear, and then we're training ourselves just to gently remove ourselves from them so we don't get tangled up in them. So we're training ourselves to move out of the station, if you like, and get back on our free-flowing journey. Yeah, often say it's a little bit like being on a desert island. Sometimes you feel like you're trapped on a desert island with your thoughts. And really all you've got to do is take one step off into the sea. There's nothing to find. The sea's always there. But we get so comfortable on our island, or we get so scared of getting off of our island of thoughts, that we end up stuck there. Really all we've got to do is take a step off. So it's just taking that first step.